Hello everyone, my name is Gajendra Dutt Sharma and I am an assistant professor of English in Bareilly College, Bareilly, and in this video we will discuss Individual and Message, an essay by Aldous Huxley. Before we go, let's throw some light on the life and works of Aldous Huxley, the essayist. So Aldous Leonard Huxley was born in 1894 and died in 1963. Initially Aldous Huxley wanted to be a scientist, but unfortunately he developed some serious eye trouble, and because of which he could not realize that dream. So when he recovered from that disease, he turned to literature. As a literateur, he is known as an essayist, as a poet, or as a novelist. And as far as his output in the field of poetry is concerned, he published a volume of verse called Limbo and Chrome Yellow. He published numerous essays, one of which we are talking right now. And as a novelist, he is mainly known for Point Counterpoint, Brave New World, After Many Summers, and Islands, etc. Now let's get back to the essay, Individual and Message. The essay tries to differentiate what it is to be an individual and what it is to be a part of message. So let's first understand the title itself. Individual, if we take the dictionary meaning, so it is a separate or a single human being or a member of a class. And message means a large number of people often crowded together. So when we take a lump of crowd, so we can call it a message. And when we take a member of a group can be familial, social, political, or religious. So when we take about that person from that group, he is called or she is called an individual. So basically he is or she is a person, an individual, a member, and then they form a society. Society or social group. Social group can be familial, religious, professional. So basically a person, a man or woman associates himself or herself either with society or social group. It can be familial, religious, or professional, or it can be a part of crowd. And now what it is to be a member of this group, either familial, religious, professional, etc., or what it is to be one of the crowd. The essayist is throwing a light on these two facets of human being when they form this group or become a part of that other group. If the person associates himself with this kind of group, or he becomes a member of the society, either familial or religious or professional or etc., so he becomes responsible. He has a purpose of life, and then he is bound by the moral code of conduct. So the person has some kind of moral purpose in his life, and responsibility. He takes the responsibility for himself, for the other members which he is a part of. But as far as crowd is concerned, if the same person becomes the member of the crowd, so it is chaotic. A crowd is always chaotic. It has no purpose. So basically the person who has associated himself with this crowd becomes irresponsible in some or other way, and then he has no purpose, he is less constructive, and then he has no capacity for moral choices or intellectual choices. He behaves according to his whims and fancies. Whereas on the other hand, the person who is familial, religious or professional, he has capacity for moral choices, intellectual choices, and then he works according to his instincts that are very responsible and creative and constructive for the society. And we can expect a sobriety or a seriousness from his demeanor, from his attributes, from his characteristics that are reflected by his being in a part of the society. But no such thing can be expected from a person who is from the crowd. So basically the person who is a member of the crowd is subject to sudden rage or sudden panic or some excessive enthusiasm. So this kind of person does not behave in an accepted way or rational way, and he behaves as if he has a large intake of some intoxicant, which Aldous Huxley has termed herd poisoning. So herd poisoning acts as an intoxicant, and under the influence of this herd poisoning, the intoxicant from the crowd, a person behaves irrationally, and then he has no choice for moral actions and accepted behavior, and as such he shirks from the responsibility and avoids being in a social group. In the second paragraph of the essay, the writer is talking about the effect of reading or oratory on individual and message. Basically he says that reading has the best impact on individual rather than on masses, and under the influence of this reading, individuals are in a normal sobriety, means seriousness. They are responsible, and as such whatever they take from the books, they assimilate it, they ponder over this, and then accordingly they behave as they are expected from that content of the book. Whereas on the other hand, the masses or the people from the crowd, under the influence of that intoxicant herd poisoning, they are at the mercy of the orator. Because they don't get any time to ponder over the things, neither they want to ponder, nor they want to behave in an accepted way. Here, individuals on the other hand, they have full time to reflect on the content of the book, and then the writer is directly with them. They have the capacity for intellectual choices, rational choices. They act according to the judgment, what is right, what is wrong, in what way they should accept what is written in the books, or what to avoid. But on the other hand, the masses are completely at the mercy of the orator. The orator in most of the cases is a propagandist. Being a propagandist, he has to simply sway the public or move the crowd particularly according to his own advantage. He does not expect the people to behave rationally. And why does a propagandist wants this? Because he wants oversimplification in everything. He is not that qualified for the rational appeal that is expected from him, because he knows that he is dealing with the crowd that is under the influence of herd poisoning, and as such they will be swayed by his assertions which are even unqualified. And he has one mission in his mind, that is sweeping generalization. He generalizes everything. There are no blacks or white. He does not think anything to be as vile, as vicious as black, or as white, as celestial white, as pure serenity. There are no grays in his theory, because he does not have any room for the doubts. He does not want the doubt to remain in his mind or in the minds of the people he is dealing with. He has one mission in his life, that is to sway the control, to control the people, and the crowd becomes a clear prey, a clear victim of his assertion. While on the other hand, the individual who is under the influence of reading or the serenity, that is an impact of reading upon him. He has a taste for rationality. Whatever he wants to judgment upon, so he is rational in everything. He has his own judgment, sense of judgment, discretion, and then he applies his discretion in whatever situation he finds himself in. So he is interested in facts. Except the facts, he is not ready to accept anything. The case that is seen in the case of orators or the crowd. What orators wants the crowd to be, the crowd behaves like this. But this is not the case with individuals. Individuals who are the part of some responsible groups like family or religion or professional surroundings, organization, etc. So they behave in an accepted or rational or responsible way. And as such, they are interested in only facts and evidence. If they don't find the evidence of anything, they are not going to believe it. In addition to that, they are resistant to wrong propaganda and inconsistencies. They have no room for propaganda. They are not swayed by any kind of propaganda. Propaganda is used only to victimize the people. That is the case with orators. Orators, because they have some self-vested interest of their own, and as such they want to victimize the people. But this is not the case with individuals, because they have some judgment, some discretion. They act according to the facts and the evidence, and they are quite resistant to wrong propaganda. Means if they are to be swayed by any kind of propaganda, so that is to be confirmed or consolidated after the facts and evidences. Only then they can believe in some sort of propaganda. If at all the orator is a rational person, a qualified person who does not behave in an oversimplified way or does not deal in unqualified assertion, or who does not have sweeping generalization for everything, the orator who has some distinct power of judgment, so they can be swayed, the individuals can be swayed by that orator. And they have no room for fallacies. Fallacies means the wrong notions or the falsified notions or the romantic ideals, the unrealistic ideas. Next, the writer is talking about the difference between philosophy and propaganda and the effect on individual and masses accordingly. As such, philosophy is certainly for individual. Philosophy teaches the people have to be inquisitive, doubtful about accepting any self-evident facts. So whenever there is an opportunity to accept facts, so that philosophical attitude or aptitude that is developed by individuals, because they are the part of that responsible groups, social, political, familial, or religious or professional. So they behave accordingly, and as such they have no room for self-evident facts to be accepting as such. They have always doubtful nature about these, and as such their effect is the virtue and intelligence. So overall effect of this philosophy, the philosophy, what it teaches to the individuals, they get virtuous nature, they get intelligence, and they have no room for stupidity or idiocy of any kind, no room for any kind of means mindlessness that are characteristics of the people who are swayed by the propaganda. So propagandist expects us to accept everything without any rational appeal, without any evidence, without any fact check. This is because the qualification on which the propagandist rests is the statement that are without any qualification, and he does not want that kind of qualification either. He knows that his target is the crowd that is always under the sway, under the control, under the impact or influence of herd poisoning. So when the people are under the influence of that intoxicant of the society, that is herd poisoning, they can be easily befooled, victimized, swayed, and they don't require any kind of statements which are because of that qualification. So all their statements require no qualification as such, because the audience does not require this much. or this thing. A propagandist has no wrong for himself. Means he has no notion, no ill will about his own personality. He is very much clear about his own perception that he is always right. And then he, at the same time, he also knows that the opponent is not right. He knows two things, no in between, that he is always right and the opponent is always wrong. There is no in between. There is no consideration because his theory rests on only the false statements and unqualified assertion and oversimplification. Whatever he theorizes is for his own advantage, own benefit. So he does not require any kind of deep drawn philosophy. That is the attribute of the individuals or the people who are the part of social, familial or religious groups, because they are expected to be so. Moreover, the propagandist knows only one thing, that is to attack or shout down the opponent. He has no room for argument. He does not want to settle anything with the arguments, because he knows that in the arguments a person can be defeated quite easily if he loses the ground on facts and evidences. And he knows that his task will be realized quite easily if he has to victimize the herd poisoned class, that is crowd. So he knows his audience quite well. He does not target the individuals, and as such his task is done. So the writer is talking about common characteristics of the propagandist. Propagandist is often a demagogue. Demagogue means a politician, a shrewd person who wants to realize his benefits, and then he targets the people who are victimized by herd poisoning. So the characteristics are that he is subhuman and then he has mindlessness. He behaves so and then he believes in this mindlessness as well, because mindlessness or subhuman mindlessness does his task, does his work. And then they have no moral imbecility. They have no room for morality or moral code of conducts, what is right, what is wrong, and what should be done, what ought to be done. These have no consideration as far as these demagogues, these propagandists are concerned. However, on the other hand, the kingdom of heaven is always in the mind of individuals. Individuals, because they have sobriety of their mind, seriousness of their demeanor, and moral code of conducts in their behavior. So they have always the peacefulness, the tranquility of the Almighty within their brain, and then they are peaceful as such in the end. So in the end, the writer poses a question for all the people. He is curious as to how to preserve the integrity and reassert the value of human individuals in the world of overpopulation, of accelerating over-organization and ever more efficient means of mass communication. So he feels that there is a great responsibility on the shoulders of the coming generation, because we are living in the world where the overpopulation is a major issue. The way the problem of overpopulation is looming large before us is catastrophic, will be catastrophic in the end. Moreover, in the world of accelerating communication, the means of communication, the advancement of technology or the information technology, so how to preserve, how to restore or reassert the value and the integrity, how to preserve our roots, how to remain connected to the institution that are very much wholesome and necessary for the individual growth. So there is a great challenge for the individuals as to how to remain connected to their family, to their profession, and to their religion, to their culture, in spite of the problems of overpopulation and in the fast moving world, in the world of accelerating mass communication and fast technological advancements. So how to preserve the integrity, that is his concern. And he feels that this can be impossible if certain things are not to be considered before it is too late. So this is all for now. Hopefully this video has made you understand this concept or the concept of mass and individual as suggested by Aldous Huxley. So we'll be back yet in another lecture on another topic. So take care. Have a nice day.